Hi, welcome to IT Idiots episode 4. My name's Nikki.
And I'm Sue Faye, and this is Anna.
Yeah, I don't know how long she's going to be there for, but so you might hear some purring. Don't know.
She is purring right now.
She is purring.
But
our great sound system might not pick that thing up. So yeah, we're back on for the 4th week. Anything exciting?
Not too much. No, just carrying on as normal. What about yourself?
No, just plodding on, doing more system centre stuff, which is what this episode's about.
Good.
Okay, so I think we'll delve straight into this one. And what we're going to have a look at this week is just because Windows 8 has been released to TechNet subscribers and everything, what we're going to look at is deploying Windows 7, which is basically how companies work, really. So
Playing catch up.
Playing catch up.
Okay.
So no, I mean, lots of people are looking at deploying Windows 7. I showed a bit of System Center last week, and I think I've got a few emails asking about how to do the Windows 7 deployment. And because that's what I do a lot for work, I just want to take you through System Center 2012 and how you would do a Windows 7 deployment. So if you're running an organization and you want to refresh all your XP machines with Windows 7, this video may be a good starting point. Who knows? Who knows?
How many organisations do you reckon are still on XP? Because I think it's still a fair bit.
I don't think any company is 100% on Windows 7.
Yeah, the IT department's always... XP. Yeah, the IT department's always a little bit ahead.
So yeah, IT normally, in my experience, certainly IT normally goes to Windows 7 first because they can't handle running Windows XP anymore. And it's also a good test bed for that as well. But yeah, the biggest problem I find is application support. Mm-hmm. Not that applications are a problem, but it's almost too much. It's too time consuming to go through the effort of finding out if they're going to work. Right. When lots of times, companies don't have the time to do this. They just stick with XP. But yeah, you can't do that for much longer because XP just doesn't run on modern hardware very well anymore. You've got to. Anyway, let's go on to Windows 7 deployment. Okay. So System Center. So I'm going to use System Center 2012 to do this. Now, you can in theory do quite a lot of what I'm going to do today with something called Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. So I'm just going to go to that website, so Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, and this is a free tool, so anyone can download it and just install it. It works by creating a file share and your image is stored in there and you're deploying from that file share. Okay, so
it's popularly known as MDT.
MDT, most people refer to it. Yeah, it was referred to, BDD, Business Desktop Deployment for old people. So yeah, MDT, maybe we'll do an episode of that if you're interested, but if you can follow through on System Center, you could certainly do it on MDT. So when we're looking at deploying Windows 7 into an organization, you've really got two choices. You've got the light touch approach, which means a user or someone will need to drive that installation like a technical person, and that's really the only thing that Microsoft Deployment Toolkit can offer you. Now, this light touch could be nothing more than starting up and with a USB boot disk, so it can be fairly automated. Whereas zero touch is something which System Center can offer, and this is good in an organisation that's running Windows XP everywhere, or it could even be Windows XP and a few Windows 7 machines which have sort of crept by. What System Center can do is take the user data off those machines, obliterate them, put a nice new Windows 7 image on, and then copy the user data back again, and that's zero-touch deployment. That's sort of like the ultimate.
When you say user data, does that include program settings as well?
Yeah, well, what System Center does is it uses something called user state migration, right. USMT, and really that's totally configurable. So if you want it to, if it's very, very important that some custom application settings are copied across, well, you need to find out what registry key that's set in, what files are important, and you literally you configure that thing to grab what you want. But USMT, out of the box, it does a good job of picking up things like Office files and Office settings, and as you would expect. So let's go to System Center. So what we're looking at is System Center 2012, and I'm going to go straight into the operating system part and try and keep a little bit more focused on this episode rather than threading my way around. So I'm going to go to the software library node, and under software library, if I just collapse all of these, you can see we've got application management. So this is for deploying things like Office. Let's have a look at if I'm doing anything in here. So under packages, I thought I had some packages. I don't have any packages in here. So things like Office, Adobe Reader, they're all being here. And we'll have a look at that. That perhaps will be a different episode. Software updates, another different episode. So you can see what this is doing is it's syncing off to the Microsoft Update catalog, and it's getting all the updates. The clients, all the System Center clients are checking against that update catalog, and they're saying if they've got any vulnerabilities. So that's looking at all my software updates. But what we're going to look at is operating systems.
So today we're just going to deploy, what, build an image?
Yeah, so the idea of today, at the end of this, what you'll be able to do is have a nice Windows 7 image which you can automatically deploy to your organisation through an F12 boot perhaps. So this will be good for new machine builds. We won't look at doing the Windows XP or we won't look at a zero touch today because that involves lots of USMT, but perhaps what we can have a look at is Windows 8 has just come out, or available to TechNet users and MSDN subscribers. Perhaps what we could do is have a look at zero touching and taking Windows 7 to Windows 8.
Okay.
That'd be exciting, and I've committed myself now, so that's it. We could do it now, but of course you need Service Pack 1, which is not released for System Center to deal with Windows 8. So I did look at it doing that this morning, but I thought, I can't be bothered, it's too much pain in there. Right, so operating systems. If you go down here, one of the great features we've got is if you look at most organisations, they're not running one model of machine. The last one I was working at was, I had about 14 different models of machines we had to support. Luckily all Dell. So what you need to do is make sure that you've collected all the drivers for those, 32 or 64-bit, and you've imported in here so that when the image is being deployed, it can inject the drivers at that point.
Okay.
So I will talk a little bit about drivers. If we go down to operating system images, when we look in here, there's nothing in there because I haven't created anything yet. And when we go to operating installers, there's nothing in there. So the first thing I need to do is I need to import the operating system source files to this. So I've just popped the Windows 7 CD in the drive. This still kind of bugs me a little bit, the way that everything has to be accessed via share when you import things. So what I'm going to do is just share that CD out. So advanced sharing. So we just share that as E, and I'm happy with everyone's got read on that one. And my machine's fan has just started up, so hopefully that isn't picking up too much on the microphone, which is just there. Okay, so I need to go into // the name of my server.
You've still got tilde.
Thank you. IHQ SCCM 01/E. Just like that folder. So I'm just importing directly from the CD. It's going to say what's the name of that. So it's Windows. I'll keep it tidy. On this RDP, I can't get capitals sometimes. Windows 7. Now I'm going to be using professional, but you could use this and you can spell it right as well. But you could use ultimate. It's all the same as long as it can join a domain. So I'm happy with that. And the version I'm not going to fill in. So there we go. So that's just imported the operating system. How easy was that? When I click on the operating system down the bottom, it will show me some further information. And I can see at the moment the summary, when we look at the content status, it's not on anything. So I just need to deploy that out. So we right click on that and we distribute that content down to a distribution point.
Okay, which we covered in the last episode. And
Well,
then we
talked about it, yeah. So we're just pushing that down. So this is what I'm going to do. Perhaps I haven't explained thoroughly what the first step you do in this whole deployment is. You might think you can just pop the CD in and deploy from there. No, you can't do that. What you have to do is you have to go through a process called build and capture. And what will happen is from those flat files, it will build up a machine, and then we'll capture that, and it will create a WIM file, like a Windows image file, and that becomes your deployed file. Now the clever things is what that build and capture sequence can do as well, because not only can it roll out Windows 7, but it can roll out Windows 7, run the updates, install Office, install Adobe, and then capture it. So then you've got a nice image with all those applications in, so when you deploy that, it's going to be a lot quicker. And because you've got the build and capture task sequence, if Adobe does get updated, you could easily go in there and just update that one task sequence and just rerun the whole process again. So we get to see all of this So I'm going to deploy that out down the bottom, and now that should go to yellow, saying it's in progress, and that will go to green to run. So that's the operating system sort of importing. Now, the other bits of preparations you need to do are you need to have a look at the site systems involved in this deployment, and that one of the most ones is distribution points, one of the main ones. So if I just pop to the administration tab while that's deploying, I can go into my site configuration, go into servers and site system roles. I have done a little bit of configuration on this before, so this is not totally after install. And I need to find my distribution point. So the problem with scrolling, so let's use the cursor keys. So that's distribution point. And if you just go to the properties of that distribution point, one of the nice things you've got now is it's fully integrated with Pixie. So all your distribution points can become Pixie deployment points, and this is pre-boot execution. So what this means is that for a new machine, it comes into your organisation. We don't need a boot disk anymore. We can just hit F12, it boots from this, downloads a boot image, and that drives the installation. So we can see Pixie support's enabled on this. Allow the distribution point to respond to unknown Pixie requests. So I'm going to do that because I want to deal with new machine builds. Now, if you're an organisation, what you might say is, I'm not going to answer unknown because anyone can F12 and have it. And what you would have to do is new machines, you would have to pre-stage in System Center, put their MAC address in there so it knows what they are. And that's another safety from people accidentally rebuilding, stupid people. The thing you could do is perhaps put a password, so when you boot up it asks for another password just to prevent accidental removal. The great thing you can do on this, if you get this all right, you won't have to troubleshoot Windows 7 so much anymore. You just rebuild them all the time, just F12 rebuild them. That's it.
So really, if you leave it at unknown, but then require a password, that should be sufficient in terms of security.
Yeah. So that's my site systems. Now the other thing, because we're booting up with Pixie, we're going to F12 and then it's going to connect up to System Center and it's going to ask me what I want to install. Well, it won't ask you what username and password. It doesn't prompt the user because it wants to be a bit more seamless, I guess. But in order to access anything on Microsoft, we need to have a user account. So what we need to configure is a network access account. So I'll take you through where that is. Hopefully I get it right this time because things have moved around so much. So I'm going to go to Administration, Site Configuration, wait for my ribbon to update, go to Sites, and Settings, Configure Site Components, Software Distribution. And underneath there we've got a network access account, which you can see what I'm using. Incredibly bad practice. So I'm actually using a domain admin account. Well, it's a lab. So in reality, this is just a standard domain user account. No special permissions at all.
No special permissions.
All it needs to do is be able to query System Center and be able to find out what we've advertised to it, what task sequence we've advertised. Okay, so that's really it for the site systems. You know, everything's all updated. Sorry, everything on the site is ready to go. Let's pop down to the site software library and still deploying. And what I'll do is I'll take you through task sequences next while we're waiting for that. So I can right click and create a task sequence, and a task sequence is just a flash name for, well, a sequence of tasks, batch files. Really. So I'm going to create a task sequence. The first thing we're doing is we're creating the build and capture task sequence. So select a new task and I'm going to say build and capture a reference machine. Click on next. So I'm going to call this build and capture. And I'm going to put IHQ lab in here so we know it's this one because I've got a few other ones hanging around. And the boot image we're going to deploy. Now, I don't know what, sorry, the Windows 7 version I'm deploying, I don't actually know if it's 32 or 64-bit. So, how do I find this? Oh, God. So I'm just going to have to go to settings of the virtual machine to find out what's in there. And it's 64-bit. So, if you're deploying a 64-bit OS, you boot up with a 64-bit image, so that's kind of logical, I would imagine. Let's put your description in. Click on next. Let me just full screen this to make it a bit better. So the next up is the package that contains the original operating system. So that's the one that I've just put in. That's Windows 7 Professional. Just imported that one.
So that's it's successfully imported now.
Well, I don't know. Well, I'm not actually going to use it. No one's going to deploy content yet.
Okay.
It might give me an error. Who knows? And we can see in this one, oh, it actually contains, you know, multiple versions. So I'm going to have Windows 7 Professional in there. Now the product key, because we're just going to build and capture this, don't care. You can leave that one blank. Licensing mode, exactly the same. The password, I'm going to put in my usual password, which I think gets captured, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, it does. If it was a Mac field, then it blanks it out. I noticed that.
Oh, okay. Just wonder why it didn't match. Okay, so that's the one. Now remember, this one's not so important because I'm not going to bother about language settings because that happens on the deployment of the image that is going to be captured. So you don't have to worry about too many settings in here. Next off, join a work group. So stupid this is. It's a build and capture task sequence. So what's going to happen? It's going to build it, sysprep it, and then capture it. And what do you know about sysprep? You can't sysprep a domain join machine. Stupid. So I'm going to say just join a work group called WG. And the package that contains the config manager client. So it's going to build Windows 7, it is going to install the client on it, and it's going to capture it. Now notice I didn't actually say that before, did I? That's because I forgot. And because I forgot, we don't actually have a package for the systems management client. So what we do is I just create that. So that's under application management, under packages. Now there is a config manager client package in here, can't use that one. Not sure why. We've got to create our own package from definition and just follow through on this one. We'll go through software deployment at some other point, and it's the upgrade one, and we just say it contains source files, and this is really just creating a package so that the Windows 7 machine is going to install this agent. So it's ihq-sccm-01 / S. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to browse from that one. So you'll notice there's a share called S. It's still called SMS. SMS underscore the site code, which in my case is IHQ, and there's the client directory. So I can just.
And that's a share you shared beforehand?
No, that's a default share. So it's the default share. So if you do it, you'll be doing exactly that.
Right, and it's still called SMS. Okay.
Yes, still SMS. Okay, so I've created that client package. What do I do after I create any package? We need to deploy it. So, sorry, distribute. Deploy is a new term. It replaces advertise. Yeah. So we'll just push that onto my distribution point. Okay, so let's go back to operating system and operating system installers. So we can see we've got a nice green on that now, so that's all deployed. So I'll go to.
Sorry to backtrack, but can you help me understand why it's upgrade that you selected?
Don't know. When you create a new package, you can create a new package, and this is, for example, Office or Adobe, and you can create a package from definition, which means they supplied the definition, and when you create the package, it knows what the command lines are. You know, it knows all of those. Okay. So what I did there is create a package from definition. It was supplied by Microsoft. It's inbuilt. So you've got to do it. I don't know why you're using that definition. Why it's called upgrade. It's upgrading from having nothing. So you just have to know. That's why. It's the ultimate upgrade. You just have to know to do it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, I think everyone does it that way. I think that's the TechNet guide I got that from. So, task sequences. You finished interrupting now?
Yes, for now.
So let's create ourselves a new task sequence. And this is going to be build and capture. And I'm going to say build and capture. Simple as that. The boot image is going to be what, Sipo?
64.
Why?
Because that's what the media...
We're deploying 64.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I go into package on here, you know, when you're creating these packages, you probably would, you know, put 64 and 32-bit, make a distinction, otherwise you will get confused. So product key, don't worry about that, do we?
Yep.
Oh, and password. If I use caps lock, it seems to work over this RDP rather than the shift. Join a work group, don't need to do that, do we? Huh?
We do.
Oh, sorry, join a domain.
Yeah.
Why don't we join a domain?
Because of this sysprep won't
Well
run.
done. Okay, so the config manager client next, so we can browse and we can see. You might say, well, which one is it? Is it that one?
No.
It's the other one.
I'm not shabby.
Right, so there's a little bit of configuration you need to put in here. So when the configuration what does that mean? Configuration manager client installs, it needs to know where the management point is. And we do that by saying SMS, still. It doesn't have to be capitalized. SMS MP equals, and then the FQDN of the management point, which in my case is the site server. ihq-sccm-01 dot, I don't know what my domain is, ad.ihqlab.com. I think it is anyway. That's all good. Right, on this step, so it's going to build the OS, it's going to apply the updates and capture it. Now, this is really good, and this you would do this in 2007. I'm not going to apply the updates because what you can do now is you can inject drivers into a WIM image directly. So you don't really need to do this anymore. And as I said, we'll go through software updates in another episode. So I'm going to say don't install software updates, you don't need to do that. Don't install applications at the moment, we'll just keep this as a blank build and a blank Windows 7 machine. But if you wanted to, you know, you can just say, in all of my machines, I want them to have Adobe Reader. Let's put that in there actually. Okay. Put Adobe Reader in there. And if Adobe Reader gets updated, all you need to do is edit this tile sequence, you know, and rerun the build and capture. And I stress it, I say this once more because everyone's got the, everyone believes that fat images are bad. And the reasons for fat images are bad, and I don't like them, is because they're hard to maintain. Yet this is a mechanism for maintaining them. So problem solved. Sysprep, it's asking us where's the sysprep files. Well, it's built into Windows 7, so don't need to worry about that. The image properties, I'm not going to fill that out. I'll be quite lazy there. And the next stuff is where we're going to capture this to. So we're going to capture this ihq.sccm01. Now I'm going to be a bit lazy here, I think, and use an admin share. No, actually, I'll use I will use an admin share. Oh. Yeah. So I'm going to say source / and the name of it, we call it capture.wim. And we need to specify an account.
Wim or Wim?
Wim. So now it's just asking me what is the username of the person we're going to use to connect. This is the only way I can guarantee I'll get my password right, it's using caps lock. Okay, so it's going to build it, it's going to install Adobe, and it's going to capture to this UNC as long as I've got right permissions to that, which you probably ought to check. And
well, it's domain admin, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just the share, make sure I've got right on the share. Okay, so getting it so far?
Yeah.
So the next thing we need to do is get this thing advertised. So we right click, and I say advertise still, but the proper word is deploy. Now it's just System Center 2012 thing. So we deploy this and we advertise this to a collection of computers. Now I haven't really got much in the way of collections at the moment, but because we want this to be for new machines, or this is going to be building and capturing on a new machine, I'm just going to be lazy and advertise to all unknown computers. What you could do is create a collection. I mean, if this is a live site, create a collection called Build and Capture, and get a MAC address of the machine that's going to be this Build and Capture and import it into there. So all unknown computers. Click on next, and the purpose of this is available. You can make it required or available. Because this is a build and capture, there's no need to force that out because I'm going to be sitting here. I'm going to advertise this by Pixie. Happy on that one. Again, because I'm not going to force it down, I'm just going to make it available. Don't care about any of that. And again, because this is a build and capture sequence, none of this is really important.
So you'll define that later in the
when you do the real deploy, yeah. So deployment options, it's going to download the content and then install it, and you can say, well, no local distribution points available, blah, blah, blah. But as I said, the likelihood is this build and capture machine is going to be a virtual machine. You know, I often recommend it to be a virtual machine because you can just knock it up and they normally build and capture quite quickly. Right.
Okay.
Good to go. Right. So that's really it on the system center side of things. So doesn't take.
Then you actually have to run the task sequence.
We have got to run it next. Yeah, you're patient, aren't you? So what I'm going to do now is I'm using, as you guys are probably aware, Hyper-V, and what I'll do is I'll just create a new virtual machine, and that will be our build and capture machine. Hopefully I've got enough resources on this. So new virtual machine. Click on next. I'll just call it reference. Store it in different locations, CVMs, that's solid state, happy with that. Might as well give it 2 gig. Is it connected? And this is the virtual hard disk that it's going to create and install on. It doesn't really matter, so this is just going to be a temp machine. And what are we going to do about an operating system? We're going to install an operating system from a network. And what this does is it make sure this VM boots from PXE. Okay, so if I connect and start the thing, you can see it's connected. I'm going to quickly hit F12, which I've got to do to boot from Pixie. The nice thing about building and capturing in Hyper-V is, notice I haven't even touched any drivers yet. This is normally quicker than this. So hit F12 for a network boot. So now what it's doing is it's downloading that Pixie, that 64-bit Windows Pixie machine. It will reboot and it will connect up and it will show me that task sequence. So what you may have to do, if this is a real physical machine, it might just be that 64-bit Windows Pixie doesn't understand the network driver, so you may need to inject drivers into that. So I'll take you through that next. Okay, so that's the password which I don't have to type in. Click on next and you can see, well, there's a number of captures you can see on there, and as I said, I've been using this before, but the one I've just created is build and capture, so we ignore all the other ones. Right. I forgot, there's something I've also done, which is, it's worth showing you what I've done. Now, normally when you do a build and capture, it just, you don't really care what the name of the machine is, and you notice it's asking what the name of the machine is there. What I've actually done is I've forced it, because when you later on you deploy machines, you don't want it to be called a default mini NT, so it's asking me to sort of resolve that variable. In fact, I won't show you that. I'll show you it when we go onto the deploy task sequence. I'll just fill that out for the moment. The reason why we're actually seeing that is because I've taken loads of shortcuts. I'm advertising to the unknown, and I'm saying, right, I'm also deploying to the unknown, and I put the variable on that. So I'm going to say ref.
That'll be the name of the machine.
Sorry? That'll be the name of the machine, yeah. But again, we won't even see that because it just builds and captures it. So click on next, and away it goes. So I think we'll leave you to look at that, and we'll be back and how long that takes.
Cool.
be crying himself to sleep tonight on his huge pillow.
You make me feel so good.
Okay, we're back. So was that exciting to watch? So that process, for real, when you are doing it and you do have VMware or Hyper-V available to you, it's really nice to sort of dedicate a virtual machine just for that build and capture process, because there's no benefits from injecting drivers or doing anything like that. That happens on the deployment side of things. Right, so you might wonder what this machine's actually doing now. Well, what it's done, let's just make sure we are capturing still. Yeah, what it's done is, you might have seen it sysprep. It should have copied it up to the server. We'll check that out in a second. And now it's just rebooting and it thinks it's a new machine, but effectively that's dead. We can switch this off now. So.
Oh, okay, because it's only being used as.
I just built it, captured it,
yeah.
And that's it. We can leave that be now. So hopefully I'll get back to my System Center server. And let's just full screen this, make it look a bit nicer. And if I just have a look at my hard disk, where did I copy it to? It was source and buildingcap.iso. I think it was that. Oh no, it would have been a WIM file, wouldn't it? Capture.wim.
Yeah.
So that looks all okay. That's copied across. But the typical failures you get on that, seriously, are the network access account hasn't been configured, and the permissions to the capture UNC weren't configured correctly. But other than that, as you can see, it works pretty well. Right, so back into the software library side of things. If I go into operating system images, what I can now do is right click and say add operating system image. I browse to where I stuck it, which is in the source directory. And it was called capture.wim, wasn't it? Right, so capture.wim, and you can see it recognises it's Windows 7 Professional SP1, and we're happy. So far nothing really hard, is there?
I don't know, if you count the failures.
And that was just time. I was joking. Okay, don't worry, because all of this is paid time. You never realise. Right, so distribute content, and let's just move this image out to a distribution point. Next. And close that. Right, so back into our task sequences. So I'm going to right click and say create new task sequence. You might say, what's that task sequence media about? Well, what you can do is, if you create task sequence media, you can create bootable media, ISO or a USB drive that contains everything, like the WIM image, excuse me, and all of the referenced applications, and that could be useful for installing a branch office or a laptop or.
Okay.
Like for example, some of the customers I work with around, I've showed them this and I think, wow, this is good. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to have like an emergency USB key that they can have, so these machines can be rebuilt really, really quickly.
But you have to keep that up to date, presumably.
Again, the build and capture can keep that up to date, so every time any one of their base applications gets updated, they just need to rebuild and capture. And again, if you've got a VM, think about how easy this is. Yeah. It's just time. F12. It's all of this is easy. So in this one, we're going to install an operating system, and let's just call it install Win7. The boot image is going to be
64.
Windows 64. And why? Because we're deploying 64-bit image. And here we can just browse to the image package. There only be one, which is the one I've just imported. Now, a WIM image can actually contain multiple operating systems, multiple images.
Right.
So in this case, it's just the first one. Right, so partition and format the target computer. Yep, so this is going to be for clean new machines. Okay, so this is going to be new machines only. The Windows key, Again, that's where you would type it in. I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother the licensing mode. And the password I'm just going to put as my favourite one. And this time, what do we want to do here? Well, this is a real one, isn't it? So we'll join a domain.
Right.
Right, so the domain I'm going to join is my local domain. And you can see we can dump it in an OU. Yeah, you've got to watch out for this because lots of people say, oh, I'll just put it in the computers one. If you do that, you'll get a failure. And the log file to find that failure is actually nested in the Windows temp directory. And what it is it says, oh, I can't join it because there's no OU equals computers. Because it's a CM, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they could have put some kind of logic in that, couldn't they, for us?
They could have.
So I'm just going to dump it in workstations. And an account I can use to join that domain. I work with customers and it's automatic because they type in this bit, and a lot of the time they get failures. And I say, please press and browse, just don't type it in, you know. Right, caps lock key. And again, I'm using the domain to have in for all of this, so that you could have, you know, create your own service account for domain joins. Click on next. The config manager client. That's my client package. Right, what have I got to do here?
SMS.
Yeah. It's going to be a long
Go
recording.
on.
It's going to be a long
Equals.
recording. No, SMSMP equals. So this is just the management point. So I've got to tell the client where it's going to find its management point. So SMSMP equals
IHQ.
Yeah, IHQ. That's SCCM 01.ade.ihq. Oops. Is that IHQ? .com. Oh, I didn't know the caps lock was still on. Don't think that matters. But messy. Right, this is going to be for new machine builds, so I don't care about capturing other ones, but we can do that later if you guys are interested. Oh yeah, we're going to do that for Windows 7 to Windows 8. We'll do that. And updates. Again, I'm not going to apply updates at this point, but again, my Wim image at the moment hasn't got any updates in it. I can inject it into that offline, and I'll show you that process. So I'm going to say, don't install updates. Again, we could say on this one, install your application. So, you know, Adobe Reader 8 was in the base application, so in the base OS, so I don't need to do it there. So I could put 7-zip on this one. So what you could think of here is, I suppose we could have a base one with Adobe Reader 8, but not everyone wants 7-zip. So we can have multiple task sequences, you know, one to deploy to technicians so they get 7-zip as well. Or you could, if you want, create 2 built-in task sequences and create, you know, different Wim images for each one. It depends on what you want to do. I would create one Wim image with the difference, you know. Okay. Oh, I'm not going to install any apps just to save some time, so I'm just going to click on next there. And we haven't done applications, which we will do in a later episode. Right, so that's the task sequence, install Win 7. Next thing I've got to do is just right click and deploy that, i.e. advertise it to a collection. And as it's to new machine builds, I'm just going to advertise it to all unknown computers. Oh, it's running a bit slow. And purpose of this, so I'm going to make it available. The other one you could enforce it. Pixie boot, make it available to Pixie. Again, I'm not going to time limit this because my idea is this is a rebuild scenario thing. When the schedule's assigned times reach, allow the following to be formed outside mode. No, don't care about any of that at the moment. We haven't covered that. So the idea of just getting Windows 7 image out there. Again, that's all to do with generating alerts if this deployment fails frequently. And I think we pretty much covered this, so we only get the option to download it, and everything's local. Now, these task sequences, you can go late and edit them if you just right click and go to edit. I could say, for example, you know what, let's actually install WinZip. So let's go to General, Install Package, and then you could browse to what package you're installing. Sorry, I haven't got any packages.
So that's how you'd add to it regularly.
At deployment time, yeah. So, sorry, this is running a bit slow now. In SCCM 2012, the reason I'm sort of stuttering a little bit here is I'm trying to avoid going heavily into application deployment. But you've got two types of application. You've got two application models. You've got the old traditional style, which you might be familiar with in 2007, that's packages. And you've got the new style, which is more orientated towards user deployment. So what I can now do is say install, 7-zip on this task sequence as well. Okay. Right. So some of the cool things that you can do, I'm going to go to my operating system images. I can go to right click here and I can say let's schedule some updates to that image.
And this is for the patches.
All the patches on it, yeah. Now what I have done is I've got some updates already downloaded, and as I say, that's an episode in itself, so just take it as read. These are some Windows 7 updates. I'm going to select all of these updates and say, oh, can you put those in the WIM image as soon as possible? Or you might say, let's do that overnight. Click on apps. It's going to stick all those in. I injected that in on one of my projects, and normally what I do is build a Windows 7 machine, just install that and let it be scanned, and then we can pick up all the vulnerabilities of that, and I just right click and grab them all, and that becomes part of the first baseline for a nice clean one. And I got that far in. I injected Windows 9, IE 9 into it, which, they didn't really want. And the bad thing about this is you can't undo it.
Oh.
When you do injection, so you might want to back up your WIM images and stuff. But again, what can you do in that situation? Rebuild and capture. Technically it's not hard, you're just wasting time. Right. So the updates at the moment, they're scheduled. So hopefully by the time we come back to that, we'll see everything's all good.
And then we're going to create a VM and
then we'll deploy into that one, and we should see it join the domain.
All right.
So the next thing I'm going to do while that's updating, because in my lab I'm just going to deploy to a Hyper-V one, but we could get this working, deploying to real physical machines. So we need to start thinking about drivers. So what I've done in here, if I go to my source directory, and this is just the directory I have. I generally have a source folder on every System Center server, like putting all the source OS applications, all that kind of gubbins in there. I've got a driver directory ready. Now what I'm going to do is just create a directory in here, and this directory is going to be for my, I'm just going to be lazy and say all drivers. And I'm going to import all drivers into this one folder. Now, it's totally up to you, and you'll find reasons yourself on why you would separate these out when you do a few deployments. But I could have Dell drivers, 32-bit drivers, 64-bit drivers. You could separate them all out. It's really up to you on how you do that. You just need to think about the package you're deploying. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, when the machine actually deploys from it, you just query it, so you don't really care how big it is. It's just a question of getting that to the deployment point. If you want to create,
so it'll always live on the
distribution points.
Okay.
Yeah. So
the SCCM server.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really, what I'm doing now, and you'll see, I'm just creating a folder in preparation. This is going to become a package. So if I go to driver packages next, it might just be because this is brand new, but I do find the way you create these driver packages a little bit weird, and that's why I've done a few of these, and I find creating that directory first makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to call this one all drivers. The path to this,
You spelt it wrong.
I always spell things wrong. It's because I'm visually impaired. So IHQ SCCM 01, and mine is on the source share, and it's updates /
I thought we were doing drivers.
Well done. Yeah, I don't know quite what I'm doing.
One more of the source. Source is fine.
Source is fine.
Then there's the drivers in here. There we go.
Right, all drivers. Select. And okay, now that contains absolutely nothing at the moment. Now, the next thing, and this is the tricky part, is getting the drivers for your models. Now, if you're, it's probably worth showing you this. if you're a Dell customer, you're laughing, because if you just Google enterprise cab for drivers,
Cab drivers.
it doesn't matter. Cab drivers. It found it anyway. Now, what Dell have done is, they've given you sort of driver files, so driver catalog, so you can look down if you've got, for example, these machines here, or an E5, whatever. You can just download this Windows 7 system cab, and if you look, a lot of them are the same, so you can end up just running, one system cab.
Right, because they've already grouped
Oh, sorry,
it
it's the combo one is what you want. So if I put down onto here, if you download that combo one, you can just import that, and literally I did this on site. They had 14 Dell machines, they all worked with one import. You try doing that with HP, so it's a nightmare. I was on site with HP, first experience doing the building capture, download the HP driver, import it, and that doesn't do it. It's an Intel driver. Go to the HP website, no, it doesn't work. What are you going to do?
I think Lenovo is much the same as well.
Got to go to the Intel website and download it and do that. So it's a bit of a pain. So I've got a lot of respect for Dell in giving you sort of this support. So the combo drivers, they're massive. It's about 1 or 2 gigs. So just to save a bit of time, and you're going to have to do this as well, I'm just going to download the PE drivers. So Windows PE 3. And we get these sort of downloaded. Now, I've got these downloaded. When the machine wakes up, and if I pop onto, there's my PE drivers there, so I'm just going to 7-zip and extract them all. And let's just go 2 drivers in here and import. So it's asking where I'm importing from. I'll go by the admin share. Again, just to save a bit of time. Oh, I can't, can I?
What do you want? I can do it for you.
Oh yeah, I want $1.
No?
And Windows P drivers. So it's like that. So it's found all of these drivers in here. Now, what I could do is categorize these, just so it becomes a lot easier. So if these were 32-bit drivers, I could import them as Windows 32-bit drivers, and then when you're doing the Windows 32-bit driver deployment task sequence, you could say consider drivers only from this category. So let's just create and say WinPE.
But if you don't do that, it'll still be intelligent enough to pick up the right ones.
Yeah. So next up, it's saying select the packages to add the imported drivers to, and you can see I've pre-created one in there. Now you could create a new package, but you can't create a new folder at the same time. So as I say, there might be an easy way of doing that. Now the next thing it's doing, it's saying, okay, I'm importing these drivers. Do you want me to inject any of these drivers into the boot images? And that's something you would have to do. And if you're building capture is, for example, on a Dell machine and it doesn't natively support those drivers, you have to update those boot images.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you think about it, you're going to a machine, a Dell machine, your F12, you're running Pixie from that. It downloads the boot image, that boot image. So it's saying, do we want to update these? So just by clicking on, yeah, let's update.
Why are you doing a 32-bit?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought that was a reason.
No. Update distribution. I'm not going to update any boot images. Just going to import the following. So yeah, drivers, have I explained that well? Yeah, 32 and 64-bit. I'd probably tend to keep those separate if you want to. Think about when you're creating a task sequence boot media, do you really want a big driver package on that USB key? It's going to make that massive. So there are reasons to separate them out. But if you're a small organisation, it's very simple. Just create one package, stick them all in there. Simple as that. So these WinPE drivers, they're going to be network drivers, and because that's what you need on them really is network, maybe video drivers on them. But there's no point in putting in video sound drivers, for example. Okay. So that's all imported. Right, what have I got to do next? Guess.
Check that they're there.
Right, let's go to driver packages.
Distribution point?
Yeah, hey. So there's drivers, you can see down the bottom little circle. It's nothing there, so we'll just right click and we'll distribute content. And we add it to our distribution point.
Maybe it's a web article. You could put some effort into it and come up with a Visio diagram.
Visio.
No?
Don't do Visio in my own time.
Or like a flow diagram of what
I'll
you
do a
need.
step by step of this.
Yeah.
Definitely, I want to do that. Hopefully, by the time this is out, it should be on the website. Oh, I've committed myself now.
Yeah.
No, we'll do it on this one because it needs to.
Yeah,
we
because
need
I think
to-
it'll
we
make
need to
more
do some- we need
sense
to
to
do
me
something.
to see how it branches out, where you need the drivers, the application packages, and all the
Yeah.
different things you have to do, and then distribute, and then roll into a task sequence.
Yep.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, I kind of understand. Right, so the drivers, you can see they're all imported. You can create little folders, and the next thing you would do is just right click on them all, or select them all, right click, and move them into that folder, because you can't import into a folder, it's really strange. So keep the parent clean, import into the parent, into the root, and move from that directly after import.
Okay.
But again, if you've categorized them, you could search by the category and import them into folders. Okay, so has that changed our task sequence at all? Let's go to the task sequence. And let's look at the install Windows 7 task sequence. Right click and edit this. And let's have a look at the apply device drivers. And inside here we can see consider drivers from all categories, or you could say limit to whatever you want. So it really is, that's just simple. Now a lot of the time what you've got to do for it, some drivers only come as exe files, don't they? Particularly HP and Lenovo. Sometimes you can extract them and you can grab the INT file out of it, but sometimes you almost need the application to support that driver, like smart card readers. So what you've got to do then, what do you think you've got to do? Treat it as an application. Yeah. So you've got to treat it as an application, and the way you would do that is, under this application, which we're installing 7-zip, so you would say install this driver, go to the option and say add a condition if, and you can query WMI if the driver, I don't have the WMI query, but you guys can Google it, yeah. So you need to know what the driver model is, and then you can be very, very specific. If you're this, then you install that package. Okay.
But then you'll have to maintain that every time you introduce a new model to the company.
And with Dell, I'm not saying that you don't have to do that in Dell. It depends on what application support you want. Lots of people don't want all those EXEs. They just want native driver support. Microsoft recommend, well, I won't say this, but I've heard, Microsoft always say, sometimes it's better just use the native drivers.
I agree, because
even if you've got a better one, just use the native one that ships with it.
I agree with that.
But I suppose it very much depends if you're talking about network cards.
Yeah, but then my experience is limited to the couple of machines.
No, you can stop at your experience is limited. Okay, so there we go, deployments. Let's have a look at the WIM image next. So if I go to images, and we can see, the schedule updates is currently in progress.
In process.
In process. Well, that's what it says, but I think...
Why would they say in process when down there it says in progress? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Right, so, any questions?
No. Can we get on with building a machine?
Yeah, the trouble now is it's updating. So I've inherently put another delay point in there.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
So, update successful. So...
So I'm surprised.
No, I've never had it fail on that, to be honest. I mean, you're only applying to Microsoft updates, you're not doing anything special with it. So, when we deploy this, it should be up to date, and I think we're almost ready to deploy. Are you excited?
Yes. This is what I've been waiting for.
Is it? Right.
Well, all day, not all my life, all day.
Okay, so what I do, I could use the reference machine again, In fact, probably what I'll do is maybe create it on a virtual machine that's got more space. No, I won't do that. So new virtual machine, and I will call this one IHQ-Win7-10 for some reason. I'll put it on my D drive, which is my non-solid state drive, so we won't run out of space like we did before.
But it'll be slower.
It will be a little bit slower, but as I said, we'll just capture this and then show the results, and that'd be that. So it's on D drive, happy with that, and we're going to boot with PXE. And let's start that up, connect it, and see how far we get.
You want me to do that after?
I can do that.
Sure.
So I click on next, and you can see build and capture, and there's my install one I just created.
Okay, so while you're here,
Yep.
every time you do F12 Pixie Boot, you'll be presented with this screen.
The reason why I've got all of this screen is because I've been quite lazy. I've advertised to all unknown computers.
Okay.
So remember, I did build and capture to all unknown computers. So probably what you want to do, again, if you've got VMware or Hyper-V, I would definitely do this. Create a Hyper-V machine dedicated to build and capture. Always use that one. It's network card. You can give it a dedicated MAC address. I always use 000 bad cafe, and which I was using for IPX network address on Novell 311.
Okay.
I've confused myself now.
Well, I was just wondering about what you meant by zero touch. If
A zero
you still
touch
have
means
to come to this and select.
yeah. Well, this is really light touch because
Okay.
this is for new machine install. Zero touch is upgrading an existing XP machine across to Windows 7 or upgrading.
Okay.
And the way zero touch works is you need to already be an SCCM client. So you clearly advertise the correct task sequence to that machine because you
Right.
know what it wants, or you should know what it wants.
Cool.
So let's just do install Windows 7 here. Oh yeah, what I was saying is, when you create that dedicated machine with the bad cafe IP MAC address, then you can import that into System Center into its own collection called Build and Capture, advertise to that, and every time you start that up, it will go through Build and Capture. You don't even have to select it, because it'll be the only task sequence advertised to that collection.
Okay, but does that not mean you'll have multiple machines with the same
Well,
MAC
remember
address?
but only one's going to run at once, isn't it? And remember what you're using it for. These are not really live machines. They're never going to join the domain. It's just a dummy machine that its job is to
Oh, you're
build.
talking about the actual build and capture machine.
Build and
Okay.
capture, yeah.
Sorry.
Right, so let's look, we could have been installing one while we were talking about that. So the value I'm going to put as IHQ. Incidentally, I'm going to show you, this is a little modification I've made. It's really, really easy modification. If you don't apply this and you just do if you follow everything I've done, you won't get this screen. It will just name it mini NT and some sort of random gobbledygook at the end.
So you must have defined the variable at some point.
OSD computer name is the variable, yeah. So you can see OSD computer name is there. Now you can write your own little script to do that, or you can grab that before. You can see if you zero touch, OSD computer name will get set to the previous computer name. So it's all done by variables. And away that goes. Now, let's just go back into System Center. I'll leave that building. Where is System Center? And I just want to show you that little variable I put in. So I've advertised to all unknown computers collection. So if I just go to that collection, assets, device collections, right click on all unknown computers, go to properties of that, and all this is collection variable is just defining it there. So you just click on that, and you type in OSD computer. So there's lots of variables, IP address, and you can look at online help for it. But again, all I want to do at the moment is build a new machine. So
okay, but how do you then tell the task sequence to use this particular variable for this particular purpose, such as the computer name?
It's built into the task sequence, so the task sequence knows about OSD. This is sort of pre-built into it.
Okay.
So there's a long list of them. So all I've done here is...
Right, so it wasn't, OSD computer name wasn't something you dreamt up?
No, it just gets set to that mini MT by default, and what you're doing here is it's almost like passing it to the task sequence that, hey, look, this is going to be set onto. So, I'll cancel that. It's that simple. So, let's just go back to the Windows 7 machine.
The world's greatest music company. The world's greatest music company.
Okay, so we're back. So it's all installed. Let's just have a look at this. Control-Alt-Delete. Let's have a log on to that. Oh look, it's joined to the domain.
Yeah.
So let's log on as administrator. I hate that when you log on as administrator, it assumes because it's got a local administrator. Yeah, you clearly mean that. So it's joined to the domain. The thing I want to have a look at is going to Control Panel, going to Properties of this, and going to, where do we find Program installed? So if we go into Programs, I can see updates in here, can't I, somewhere?
View install updates under it.
So let's view installed updates. And we've got Silverlight in there.
Just loading.
Suspense.
Oh, there we go.
So you can see we've got all of these updates already in there. And
Awesome.
pretty good. So now what you've got, and this is clearly join the domain. Not only is it join the domain, it's it's got the System Center client on, so it'll be running inventory as we speak. If I go to Internet Explorer, let's just go to, it's downloading and installing the software now. Let's just go to my favourites. And come here. Anyway, before we start worrying with cats, let's just go to Config Manager Application Portal. And all I want to show is this is a full-on client. It's joined the domain. It's ready to go. If I go to the portal, we should see all the applications ready and waiting for me, so I can pick and choose to install them. It's clearly having some issues running now.
Nope.
Oh, there we go. And you can see this 7-zip. So, but other than that, that's it, I think.
That's it. Very nice.
So, just to recap, all we did was import the Windows 7 ISO to it, create a build and capture task sequence, use a VM, build onto that, captures. Don't have to worry about drivers if you're using virtualization, Hyper-V, and then you've got your Wim image. You can then apply your updates to it offline, then create another task sequence to deploy that out, and there you go.
And so now you can create as many Win 7 machines from that
so now,
as you like.
I mean, for my little lab now, it's going to be, if just fire up a new VM F12 and I can, type in the OSD computer name and build a new machine. And, I've done that for Windows 7. You can do that with Windows 2008 RT, do that with your servers as well. So you can deploy these, to a virtual machine, to a physical machine with all the drivers in there. So, all good. That's it. Till next time. Bye.
Bye.
Chicken goes into the library, goes book, like that. There's a librarian gives him a book, and goes away, comes back in next day, and goes book, like that. So gives him 2 books, and goes away. And third day comes in, he goes book, so gives him 3 books, and chicken goes away, comes back, gives the other books in. And so the librarian thinks there's something going on here. So he follows the chicken goes to the hospital, and then he goes into a ward, and it turns out the chicken's visiting his friend, the frog, yeah. So what happens, he gives him the library book, and the frog goes, read it. I love that joke.